Well, welcome, Scott. We're here today at PAY360. I thought it might be good to start with a quick introduction for yourself and tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Yeah, good. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, my name is Scott Abrahams. I'm SVP of Business Development at Mastercard for the UK and Ireland. What that basically means is that I run a lot of our lines of business in the UK, specifically focused on acquiring, on B2B and other business payments, and also in particular, and probably what's of greatest interest to Pay360 and the Emerging Payments Association is fintech and prepaid and e-money. I run our UK business there, which is a business centered in the UK, but has aspirations and business throughout the world.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's been a strange few months that we're coming out of now. So how's it been for you? How have you found it?
Yeah, I don't know whether we're coming out of it quite yet, Gina.
Looking at
I
it.
think yes, yeah. But bless you for your confidence. Yeah, it's I think, well, I was. It's been, of course, it's been tough, right? It's been tough personally, but I'm blessed and lucky to be able to do the job I can from home. My family around me. I'm not. It's hard to drive a bus from home, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, from that perspective, I feel very blessed and lucky to work for a company where I can, work at home, continue to perform. I think when it comes to payments, I've been asked this question a lot, and I break it into two sections. The first section, March, April,
Mhm.
for our company, and I think for many companies, was just coming to terms with what was going on, and also give each other space to, to decide certain things. So in that time, we put the contactless limit up, right, with our colleagues, our partners within the industry, etc. We've made many other changes which hopefully made payments easier for everybody in such a difficult time. Past that, coming into May and June, we are in inverted commas, some sort of business as usual. Deals are being made, things are happening. We're very proud of what's happened from a deal perspective at Mastercard over the last few months. So, we've been able to perform in a remote access way relatively well, I think, overall. And actually, I think, if we were to ever to return to normal payments, and digital payments in particular, are in relatively good shape, right? People are preferring to use these means of payments. People are spending on the internet for the first time. People are using contactless more often. People are using mobile wallets more often. And so from that perspective, not that we would ever want it in this regard, clearly, and what's happened to the world, there's some things happened that I think has made digital payments even more important to the UK and to the global economy.
Definitely. And I mean, is it now a time to get everybody up to speed on what digital payments can offer, or are we looking to innovate? Where do you think we are right now?
I don't think that has changed at all. I think we need to do more and more for both all the time, quickly, quickly, quickly. I think there's still a huge amount of innovation going on in payments. I think some of that innovation is being borne out by, the pandemic and things that perhaps weren't so important a few months ago that are now, particularly when it's dispersing funds to consumers and to citizens. So that's important. I think, when I look at the discussions that we've had with the public sector, with central government, they see a growing role for digital payments in an era such as this. So, I think the Emerging Payments Association, I think Mastercard and many of our partners will continue to do a good job, ringing that bell, if you like. But at the same time, we need as much innovation as we possibly can to keep coming. And London is still a great place to innovate, right? Irrespective of the global economic considerations, London is still a good place to be. And, we're proud of how much innovation is still happening here.
And
Excuse
looking
me.
around, are you kind of looking at anyone, any partners perhaps, and thinking, they're doing a really good job right now? Anyone you'd suggest?
I think everybody's doing a great job.
Yeah.
I run a network business, so every one of our partners and licensees are amazing, of course. So I wouldn't particularly point out everyone. What I would say overall and in general is that our industry has very quickly adapted to what's going on, and has brought out some amazing offers. I look at what say Starling Bank did with cards to carers and people who are helping people shield. We've worked with many of our acquiring partners at supporting the NHS and key workers through those tough times over the last few months. I think a lot of different areas of the payments infrastructure have really risen to the challenge. So I wouldn't necessarily, I can give lots of examples. I wouldn't point anyone in particular out, apart from to say that there's just been a huge amount of innovation going on. And I judged the Emerging Payments Association Awards a couple of weeks ago, and I won't go into any details on that, but apart from to say we've never had so many entries, and that just shows you the vibrancy of what's been going on when it comes to payments.
Absolutely. And you mentioned kind of care workers and the NHS there. Are there any sort of key trends that you can see now in payments in these sorts of sectors that you think will maybe carry on into 2021?
I think it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously there has been an increasing demand and usage of well, a decreasing demand and usage of cash more than anything else in the UK, and we've seen that in many parts of the world. We've also seen in recent days publications by the FCA, by the Treasury, about how important it is, quite rightly and understandably, that access to cash is still there in some ways or other. So I think that's going to be an even harder balancing act now than it was, God, all that time ago, 6 months ago, say. I do think, though, that as I said earlier, people are increasingly using contactless, and that's fine. Why would you stop using it? And now that we're feeling a bit better about the future, why would you not keep shopping on the internet now that you've used it, etc., etc.? I think I read that there was 1 million people in a queue to join Ocado. I think I read this week, etc., etc. Think of that. So from that perspective, I think there's there are a number of things that we have done in concert with many of our partners to help the UK and perform over the last few months. But I think those things will stay there, and that share will stay, I think, into the future.
And what about sort of events like this, the virtual world? How are you coping with being a virtual person in a box on the screen?
Many people who have met me physically would prefer to meet me as a virtual box on a screen, Gina, number one. I think it's okay. I think for me personally, and I think this is probably the same for many people, I still struggle a little bit with where work ends and home life starts.
Sure.
I've and there's many people watching this who will know me. I've started running, for instance, Gina. I mean, just to almost sort of stop my day to some extent, and I've been quite busy the last few weeks with a lot of things that have been going on, so I think that's been difficult. I think you're more efficient in some ways, though. Nobody wants to spend 4 hours in one meeting, so you try and make it and do it in 90 minutes.
Sure.
And also, I think I used to travel a lot, many of my colleagues traveled a lot. You would try and set up a meeting and think, oh, we probably get this set up in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Now you can do it tomorrow or this afternoon because nobody's traveling, right? And so, I think there's positives and negatives, and I think over time we'll get to that right balance. But I do think that overall it's been okay. And when I think about my own personal situation, I can't think of many things that I've missed out on from a business performance perspective that I would have done a better job if I was in an office, to be honest with you. Some people may feel differently, but I do miss the contact of my people I work with who I've loved working with for so long. That's something I really miss. But what we're hearing from our colleagues is that a lot of them are reevaluating the balance of their lives, right? I mean, I've got a young child. Many of my employees have young children. The fact that I would often not see my son from Monday through to Thursday, even when I was just working in London.
Yeah.
So the fact now that I see them all the time is something that I value, and I don't know whether I entirely want to go back to that in the future. So that'll be, I think, as employers and leaders, that's something we've really got to think about.
It's certainly an interesting conversation. Well, that's
Mm,
great. Thank you so
mm.
much for joining me. I think that might be all we've got time for today, but it's been lovely to speak to you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Gina.